Right here, second seat.
Well, here, get everybody to check in and make sure that we have quorum.
We have quorum.
Great, and there's Supervisor Ashley. Welcome, sir. We heard you were having breakfast. Yeah, did you want to do a roll call?
Roll call is done electronically as a vote item.
Okay, so I only see one green light up there, so do we need everybody just to check in? Or is this not working correctly?
It's going to come up right now.
Yeah. No, I know, but I just want to make sure that when we vote, because right now I see the green light on me. And usually when everybody's checked in. Okay.
Look and see if they.
Right.
Okay, they're coming in.
And this is just because the mic is on then? Because last time everybody that was checked in had a color, right?
Yes,
Right.
And City of Corona. Thank you, sir.
There it goes. There it is. Okay. You said that. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments at this time?
I have no requests.
Okay. Fantastic. Oop, that's right. Mr. Gardner, would you lead us in the pledge, please? Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'd like to take a second before we start to have a moment of silence for the 16 young victims that were shot and killed in Florida and for their families. May God bless them. Okay. So no public comment. Call for a vote on our minutes. Looking for a motion if yeah, that looks like it passes 7 and 1 abstention.
And it worked and everything.
There we go. Really nice. All right, so our consent calendar. Does anyone have anything they'd like to pull for discussion on the consent calendar? Okay, I'm looking for a motion then.
Got to get the right screen up there.
We got to talk to a supervisor about speeding this system up.
Yeah.
No good guy
There
to
it
talk
is.
to, Marion?
Go for it, somebody.
Uh-oh.
Mr. Chair, do you see the final vote?
Yeah, we got it.
Thank you.
That's 8-0.
I didn't know anything.
All right, thank you. All right, Brian, you're on deck, sir.
I'm still coughing.
You don't look like Brian. Then.
I coughed during the day a little bit.
Oh, Dennis, give me, oh, it's Princess. There it is.
You know,
Appointments for the budget.
good thing I don't look like Brian.
Yeah.
So, good morning, the boards for the rchca, and I'd like to present to you item, I believe it is 7.1. It's item 7A, and this is a request to appoint a budget subcommittee member for 2018. So RCHCA policy establishes guidelines by which this subcommittee operates, and we use this subcommittee to provide recommendations to the board of and the executive director concerning the fiscal year budget. Historically, we've had like 4 or 5 different members in addition to the chair and the vice chair for the budget subcommittee, and sometimes it becomes really difficult to coordinate the schedules in order to be able to facilitate that process. So as a result, this year, staff is requesting that the board nominate 1 additional board member to sit on the subcommittee with the chair and the vice chair.
Always good.
And so we ask that you take a vote or discuss that item. Yes, it is.
I have a question.
Yes.
So when are the meetings typically held? Are
So,
they-
we typically hold the meetings in March. We try to coordinate the schedules with your schedules. We'll hold those meetings in March. Usually we'll have one every now and then. There may be a second meeting required. And then we prepare the board and we present the budget to the board at the May meeting.
I'm willing to serve unless, you want to continue.
Okay? Okay?
All right. And so we need to vote on that, right?
Yes.
So we're looking for a motion to keep Mr. Vargas on that board, in addition to the chair and the vice chair.
And Ms. Edwards?
Yeah, you got the name. I got a yes.
City of Murrieta, please vote.
I'm trying, I got no screen. Yeah, something's going on. There we go.
There we go.
And that passes 8-0. All right. Princess, you're still on deck.
Right. So next we have item 7.B, and this is Princess Hester. Again, I'm your Administrative Services Officer for the RCHCA, and I am presenting an update of our recovery efforts for SKR. I'm really excited to present today. It may seem as though there are a few things that have happened, but in the life of Fish and Wildlife Service, these are some really big things that are happening. So we've continued to work with the Carlsbad office, that's our local office, and we are really creating a partnership with them in looking at how we can demonstrate recovery for SKR. We've changed our lingo, and so we're not focusing on whether we want delisting or downlisting. We're working to just demonstrate SKR recovery because we know that that's the foundation that will allow this project to move forward. So in October, we published an RFP for a habitat suitability model, and we had your permission to solicit vendors for this habitat suitability model. And this model is important because it'll not only help us to be able to identify suitable habitat for SKR, it supports our translocation program. It's also something that will help our partners at the RCA who are continuing to acquire habitat for endangered species. So this is something that it'll be a tool in our arsenal to be able to use for all of our partners that are in endangered species recovery. So we posted the RFP. On the RFP committee, we had members from Fish and Wildlife. The reason we have members from Fish and Wildlife is because they will be the agency that will provide the spatial data and imagery that'll be the basis for the foundation of this habitat suitability model. And we need to also make sure that they are approving the model that we're implementing. We received 2 proposals. One of the proposals was from the University of California at UCR, and the other was from Conservation Biology Institute. And so we've done a lot of work with UCR. We partner with UCR on a lot of our research projects. They are, leaders in the field for their agricultural research, and we've done some great work with them. However, for this particular model, we felt as though CBI was the most responsive bidder. Now, they weren't the lowest cost bidder. The difference between what UCR was able to present and what CBI is presenting is a little different. However, the team felt that the scientific proficiency of CBI was going to be more beneficial in this model that we're developing. This is a model that has to be scientifically based. It also has to be scientifically defensible as we move forward with demonstrating SKR and recovery in an area. And UCR proposed that they would use a grad student for this project. While that may not necessarily be wrong for other research type projects, we just wanted to make sure that we were working together with an agency that was knowledgeable in the scientific field and that it would be something that we could definitely represent and get behind. with the information that they're providing, there may be reasons to go back and retool it or to prove it on the ground. And so if we have a grad student preparing that work, that person may not always be available for us to regroup with to review the information. So we are working to finalize the process, and we'll be bringing the agreements back after we've reviewed them. We'll bring them back to the board for review and approval at the main meeting.
That's receiving the file.
It's going to be receiving file, but I want to tell you about a couple of other things.
Okay.
One, like I said, so we continue to work with the Carlsbad office. One of the great things is that number one, that they have dedicated a dedicated staff member to work specifically on the finalization of our draft recovery plan. And that's huge. There were some changes as we went through whether or not the agency was going to be funded. You know, we had a few hiccups with that. However, we have a monthly conference call with our members at Fish and Wildlife. They've participated in it monthly, and they have provided information to us to provide us updates on everything that they're doing, which is really great. Some of this dialogue hasn't happened in the past, and so we're involved in the decision-making that they have on our behalf for SKR. One of the things that's very influential is the fact that they've reviewed their procedures, and they've identified that, you know, the rulemaking process that they use isn't always the best. And what it does sometimes is create additional bureaucracy that's unnecessary. And so what they've done is they've improved this rulemaking process, and they're implementing what's called a species status assessment. And so for lack of a lot of information, basically what happens is year after year, all of our agencies submit information and data to Fish and Wildlife that demonstrates what we've done as far as supporting the species. And that includes like our monitoring reports, our threats and analysis. It includes our conservation actions towards the species. Sometimes that information sort of gets lost in the fog. But now what they're doing is with this species status assessment, they have a person that's gathering up all that information and including it. So before they actually go into the rulemaking process, they have all the details that they need in order to be able to make that decision. And another thing that they're doing that's really great is they're putting it out for the peer review prior to the rule being made. Before, what they would do is they would make the rule, and then they would send it out to peers, and peers would review it, and of course not always agree, and so then it just caused a lot of extra bureaucracy to have things approved. So that is really a huge step on our behalf for how they are reviewing our efforts to demonstrate species recovery. So we're still on target to complete the review of the SKR draft recovery plan, and we hope to have that in place by 2019. One of the things that will also support that is we are going to Sacramento in March, and we're going to be meeting with the wildlife agencies. And fortunately, we have Mayor Ingram, who's going to meet with the legislative agencies to demonstrate what we're doing and to introduce what we've done as far as SKR recovery. And Fish and Wildlife is actually sending a partnership letter to the wildlife agencies to let them know that we've been a great partner. And our goal for that is really to make sure that they continue the support that they're giving as far as staff is concerned in regards to this project, and that they recognize that we do have a partnership and we're working towards demonstrating recovery. So we'll bring a report back after the Sacramento trip. We'll bring that back at the May meeting. And then I'm asking you now to approve the annual trip to Washington, D.C. Last year, we made our first trip to D.C. We had the opportunity to introduce this agency and to build some of those relationships, and we'd like to continue that relationship on the congressional level. And so we're asking that you allow the chair, vice chair, and the staff to visit Washington, D.C. To continue to spread the information and the positive efforts that we've made towards SKR recovery. So we're anticipating about $5,000, and it's definitely covered in our fiscal year's budget, so we don't request a budget adjustment at this time, but we'd like your approval to also plan that trip. And that's my report.
Thank you. Marianne, I see you in the queue.
Yeah, I have a question. Do I remember receiving an email asking me if I could go to Sacramento? And I can.
Okay.
So I had my city staff check calendar. And did that include Washington, D.C. also?
We'll send an email for Washington, D.C. So that date is actually May 22nd.
Okay.
On the 20th and 21st, we're kind of going to meet with the local wildlife agencies, but we really would like our board support for the meeting on the 22nd. That meeting will definitely be with our state legislators, and it'd be great if you could be there.
Is May 22nd when everyone's at ICSC? Oh,
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Is there a conflict?
yeah.
Okay. So.
International Convention and Shopping Centers in Las Vegas, and many of the cities do go.
Okay.
I will be there because I'm our.
Did I say May? Did I say May? I mean March.
So the trip to
March
DC,
22nd, I'm sorry.
There you go. That's probably better.
March 22nd. May, March. Okay.
Okay, so we have Corona in the queue.
Thank you very much. If I could ask, I don't think Dick Haley needs a microphone, but we'll give it a shot. When you, if approved, and you go to DC, specifically, not the names, but what entities will you be speaking with in Washington?
So in Washington, we meet with our congressional leaders, which are Duncan Hunter. We meet with Senator Feinstein, Kamala Harris. We meet with representative from from San Diego, and his name's I'm gonna draw a blank. And then
Daryl Issa,
Issa, we meet with Daryl Issa, thank you.
Mr. Calvert.
We meet with Ken Calvert, and we also meet with the wildlife agencies. Last year, we had the opportunity to meet with the Assistant Director for Fish and Wildlife, which was really great because he actually did what he said he was going to do. When we left that meeting, he said, I'm going to reach out to Carlsbad and I'm going to let them know that they need to support your project. And this year, we have a dedicated staff member working on our draft recovery plan. So I'd like to give him the feather to say, you know, that he actually did what he was supposed to do. And then we also found it beneficial to meet with other representatives that have worked on recovery plans and have demonstrated species recovery under their habitat conservation plans. And so we met with an agent, and I believe he's from Wyoming, and they also were facing habitat conservation for an endangered species in their area. But it was really beneficial to find out, you know, at the end of the day, we all have the same challenges. And so we were able to discuss and talk about some of the challenges that they had and how they were able to work around them. Because, you know, one of the biggest challenges for us will be, are we going to be considered a part of Northern San Diego? And if we are, then how do we best work to bring them to the level of recovery that has happened in Western Riverside? And so we set those meetings to meet with the people that we know that are going to be beneficial in helping to move our project forward.
Okay, the elected officials are fine, God love them. But I really think it's a good idea to talk to other agencies who've actually been there, done that, got the T-shirt, to figure out how they did it.
Yes.
And there's no sense in reinventing the wheel, so I congratulate you on that. And that, I think it's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've made multiple trips from RCA and other agencies, and these are very productive if you know the right people to go to. And Marion's attended them with me as well, and it's been my experience, not only do you learn a lot, but SKR is very unique in respect to what we're doing in Riverside County. We lead the state when it comes to habitat, there's no doubt. And I was told at one point that we have 20% of the nation's habitat right now that we're protecting in Riverside County alone. So not only is it productive to talk to Mr. Calvert, but it gives us the opportunity to look for peripheral funding and other things that may be available to help maintain the plan for perpetuity. So it's a very productive trip. So I'm not
No,
a
if I
big fan of
could
these.
just respond to that. I'm friends with just about everybody up here from one committee or another or another or another. And we have all joined together. And, hey, how'd you do that in Temecula? How did you fix that in Riverside? What's going on in, wherever you are? And I think it's all interpersonal relationships, and I think it's phenomenal that you're doing that. So, good for you.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to bring it back. Oh, we had Paris, were you in the queue?
Yep, move to approve the trip to Washington DC.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so just to clarify, that's right now that trip would be for the executive director, chair, and vice chairman. Should the vice chairman not be able to go, then we will pick someone else at this time.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so our screen is gone again. There we go. It's coming out. And Princess will
I'll
be
take care of
attending
it.
as well. Okay, that passes 8-0. Okay. Princess, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Put it in here, right? So, Mr. Shomo, you're on deck.
Hard that mic. I think they're going to get a camera on it too, so if you can't see it, I think the IT staff is going to put. Is it there? Okay. It's here. So the item before you, item 7C, is a receive and file, and it's an update on the progress the rchca is making towards public access in the reserve system. There are 8 reserves, and I'll get into some of the existing public access. But just to summarize what we're about to embark on is rchca staff continues to work on increasing public access on rchca-owned lands. Many of these reserves are owned by multiple ownerships, the state, the federal government, water districts, and whatnot. So we're concentrating to increase public access on rchca lands at this time. We're finalizing the scope of work to be included in the request for proposals for a feasibility study to assist in the development of a trail concept plan. The idea is to do this concept plan over at the Steel Peak Reserve. We own about 250 acres over there, and it's completely accessible. We don't have to go through other people's land or get other permissions to do so. So if you're familiar with the Good Hope area, it's outside the city of Paris in an unincorporated area. It's challenged, and so there are limited recreational opportunities over there. It would be a good place to do this kind of trail concept, increase recreation. So we'll basically study that. The scope will request the development of a feasibility study that will consider the habitat conservation plans. There's multiple ones, the MSHCP, the SKRHCP, the BLM has land over there. That's the South Coast Management Plan that has to be considered. Other adjacent land uses. Planning documents and input from the rchca board and stakeholders, including and most importantly probably the residents in that community. We want to involve them extensively. In some of the deliverables, we ask to have at least 2 public meetings to inform the residents. The goal is to develop trail facilities to encourage additional interest in visiting the region, creating the new opportunities for the local economy, and enhance recreational opportunities and quality of life for those residents of Riverside County. Just to give you an idea, if you can see this, let's see, Steel Peak is up here. The rchca owns the land over here, number 3, right in these upper 2 corners. So the rest of it is owned by the Bureau of Land Management, and there is existing public access. And now, if I move, can I move the slide here? Hang on. Whoop, back up. All right, well, not there. So is it on to the next one? No, it's not. The complete graph did not, or the table did not show up. So Steel Peak is basically, on mine, Steel Peak is owned by rchca and the Bureau of Land Management. We own 250 acres. The Bureau of Land Management owns about 1,200 acres in there. They're kind of disjunct parcels. The idea is that there are designated routes through the BLM parcels, and perhaps we can link that up, making a larger regional trail sometime in the future. But right now, we're just concentrating on the rchca property. It's off of Forest Avenue in the unincorporated area of Good Hope. Other opportunities for public access, just kind of run through real quick, is Sycamore Canyon Wilderness Park in the city of Riverside. The city of Riverside owns it. Also, there's some state land near Alessandro. There's biking opportunities there, hiking opportunities, wildflower watching, pictures, nature photography, that kind of thing. Lake Paris State Park, we know that over there, Lake Paris, Moreno Valley area. Obviously, camping, hiking, equestrian use, boating, kayaking, that kind of thing. Some of the other ones, though, aren't as easily recognized. Southwest Multi-Species Reserve, which is down near the city of Temecula in the unincorporated area of Winchester and also Hemet. There's opportunities down there, limited in the reserve itself, but within the Diamond Valley facilities of the MWD operations areas. There's biking around the lake. There's a limited equestrian use. The county has a park in that area with splash pad and camping and whatnot, fishing, obviously. Some of the things that I just got yesterday, I wasn't able to incorporate in this. MWD and county parks have gone into an agreement. I think the city of Hemet is also involved in a water district out there. They're developing a very large trail that someday maybe be part of the Pine to Vines Trail. going from our area up and over the hill, or the mountain, and into Palm Springs. And so we're looking at extending the Gold Ridge Trail. That'll be approved by the Reserve Management Committee, hopefully. But they're in the process now of developing those alignments, and they're kind of in a conceptual stage. I had a map just delivered to me yesterday. Maybe I can bring that back to you at a future meeting. So Lake Matthews is still a mountain reserve. We own considerable acreage in here. Unfortunately, we're landlocked. MWD owns most of the land with road access, and we can have access to it for maintenance of our property, but not necessarily public access. So we try to do what we can. We do organized hikes and volunteer events. But the reason we concentrated on Steele Peak Reserve in this trail concept plan is because of all the layers of bureaucracy necessary probably to get through MWD to gain us access for public use. And so, good to start here where we can demonstrate proof of concept, and then maybe in the future we can expand over here. MWD is also limited by the use of their land by a settlement agreement. And so years ago, Audubon Society litigated as the settlement agreement came out. And essentially, the only public use of that area is for research and educational use. So it's kind of a limited access opportunity at this time. That being said, there are some hunting areas. If you know any of your constituents that like to do upland game hunting, dove, rabbit, whatnot, at the top of Estelle Peak, if you come off of Gavilan Hills Road, you can get to the top of Estelle Mountain, and there's hunting opportunities there. The final...
Brian, how many people actually know about that?
Probably very few. CDFW has removed it from their hunting guides, and so it's not advertised anymore, and consequently not too many people go up there. Yeah, so very few.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I know there's always hunting. Hunters that come looking for places in our jurisdictions. It's limited access, but you can do it. The other area is outside the city of Beaumont and Banning, and that's Potrero Reserve. And that's a CDFW area as well, and you can do limited hunting out there. And that's up in this area. Potrero Reserve, yeah. There's another one called Potrero ACEC. That's the area of critical environmental concern, and it's almost designated wilderness, so there's not much activity that can take place in there. That's the BLM land. It's a tiny little area out here as well, but it's in the Badlands. It's very inaccessible. So if you have hunting opportunities, still Lockheed Martin facility, but there are limited hunting opportunities in there. And so, and then, let's see, and the last one is Mont Rimrock, and that's strictly for research purposes. It's very small. It's also near Paris. And there's very limited public access, mostly for researchers and involved through UCR. But that is the end of the presentation, and I believe it's a receive and file.
Fantastic. Well done. Do we have any questions? Immaculate?
Brian, I know we talked about this in the old days, but is there any interest in SMER, San Diego State Universities? And
is it public access?
Well, you know, we've developed a really good relationship with them, and we have a good relationship with the university. The city has talked about putting trails in there. It's part of our jurisdiction now. We annexed it, and so, you know, that might be, there's a better chance to make that area a reserve now than there was previously. So if you would like to pursue that, I'd be glad to step in.
For us, I don't know if it makes much sense because it's not in a lot of SKR habitat
Yeah.
from what I understand, but there are recreational opportunities. And I believe one of the things was that it's unlimited and people were sneaking in.
Yes,
there was
they
trash
are.
built up and stuff like that.
Because the
And
river's beautiful. the
Right,
canyon.
and so one of the things we have the same experience at Steele Peak Reserve, and the idea was if you increase the good public access and control it,
Yeah.
then it makes more sense for the reserve as a whole, and you get rid of the trash and, you know, the illegal activities and stuff that go on in there. I don't know if SMER is looking, I'm sorry, I'm not really familiar with SMER.
We're pursuing that, so I'll
Yeah.
just I'll keep you apprised
Yeah, that would be
of
great.
what's going on with trail access. So
Yeah.
we just completed a project with the city of Lake Elsinore. They're actually putting a solar array there in an unused portion of the reserve that was denuded of invasive eucalyptus trees. So it's a good
It's
relationship.
an interesting project, yeah. I'm familiar with that project, and it's an interesting concept, and I believe we're exploring that concept as well. So at a future meeting, maybe we'll bring some more details to that. But
So do we have any other questions? Hearing none, we'll receive and file just a comment. Great job on that, and I think we need to put some urgency at some point of talking with BLM, and maybe that gets a hold of Karen Clary Rose and have a meeting with her and the board where we discuss access and the type of access that we can provide. I think future buy-on for SKR and any of the other programs is going to come from making sure that we have the people that want to enjoy those areas. Those become our eyes and ears. You know that. We've had this discussion. And so if they have access to it, they're more likely to want to take care of it than lose that access. But to not have access means that why should they care?
Exactly. I agree.
So just that note. All right, so let's move forward. Brian?
All right, just move over here. The next item is the reserve management and monitoring. Have I got enough paper here? Item 7D is the item report on the Stevens Kangaroo Reserve Management and Monitoring efforts, the fourth quarter report, and we'll give you kind of an annual summary of kind of the highlights of what we've accomplished over the last year. Quickly, we'll run through the weed management that we've performed, SKR monitoring, and the riparian restoration, and then we'll give you an annual summary. So weed management. We removed and treated all the tamarisk and all the tobacco tree within the rchca lands. There is none at this point. It was a huge effort. I have to thank the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management. The federal government gave us a 10-man crew in addition to our staff who really went through. They had to haul all these trees out of those riparian areas up steep hillsides to where they could be chipped and then removed. It was a great effort. rchca staff was then contracted by Metropolitan Water District to remove some tobacco tree along their south shoreline. We started doing that, and then we received a large grant that we'll talk about in a little bit through the state responsibility area grant funding that a lot of unincorporated folks who are in high fire risk areas pay a certain tax. That tax money is then, some of it's funneled back for these fuel reduction projects, which include ladder fuels and like tree tobacco and tamarisk. And so also we completed 4 baseline vegetation surveys. We plan on burning a large portion of Lake Matthews Reserve north of Cajalco Road and south of El Sobrante this year on behalf of MWD. And so in order to evaluate our future management strategies, we want to have a baseline. And so we performed a nice baseline. Show you in a future slide here, we'll get into a little more detail. Here's the state responsibility grant. We received that grant. It's worth about $142,000 worth of labor. The CCC, the California Conservation Crew, will provide several crews for us for the period of about 3 months, and they'll perform various activities of fuel reduction, fire fuel reduction in our unincorporated areas in our reserves. It will include a fire line installation, invasive tree removal, which acts as ladder fuels and into the canopy, and in a standing in a wind condition, those embers can go for miles. It will expand fire breaks along residences. We will expand fire breaks and install fire breaks along some of the unincorporated area roads, like Rawson Road out near Southwest Multi-Species Reserve. That's the only ingress and egress for those folks out there. So we want to really make that safe for not only our first responders, but also for the people that may have to evacuate out that area. So we were pleased with that. And here's the close-up of the areas that we removed, all the tamarisk. This is all the riparian areas on rchca property. It's tens of thousands of feet of streams. It was a huge undertaking, and again, I have to thank the BLM. They really did provide a lot of labor and the equipment for free to us, and so we can't complain about that. Here's the transects. As you can see, this is the area north of Cajalco Road, the area up of where the red lines kind of stop is El Sobrante Road, and that's the baseline survey. So hopefully this spring you might see some smoke coming from that area. We'll obviously let everybody know, but that whole area, it's about 700 acres, is probably going to be prescribed burn with CAL FIRE. And here's the pre-burn data. That's why we think it's going to be a pretty big fire in a sense. With the pre-burn data, you can see the percent cover is almost 100% cover. You can't see bare ground beneath you. When you look straight down, you measure the percentage of dirt versus vegetation, it's almost 100%. When you're looking at the average thatch thickness, which is the dead grass laying on the ground, it's about 20 centimeters on average. That's 8 inches. You got 8 inches of dead stuff there, which for SKR, I mean, they got arms about, an inch long. So it's all barren of any kind of SKR. We're hoping to improve SKR habitat, add about another 700 acres of managed land to SKR. The height of it, again, is 80 centimeters. That's about 3 feet. It's 31 inches, so
It's not safe for Mary Ann back there, right?
Hey,
hot.
I was going to request, could we change centimeters to inches so
I
that we
will in
will
the
all
future.
know how,
That's why, as a scientist, we've been geared to use the metric system, so
Yeah.
I would happily, that's why I'm trying to give you it in inches, but yeah,
For
I
we
will do that in the future.
musicians, for the musicians in the group, inches would be much better.
But yeah, so it's 3 feet high, 8 inches thick of thatch on the bottom. This area of MWD's land hasn't been managed. It's just been accumulating for decades. So it's going to be flame lengths of about 15 to 20 feet is what CAL FIRE is predicting. So it's going to probably not be all burned on one day. It'll be a multi-day event. But we'll have to have substantial barriers and buffers and whatnot. So the SKR monitoring, we performed some SKR monitoring on rchca property at Lake Matthews. I'm happy to report it's about a 13% increase from 3 years ago when we did the last survey. We did in 2014, we found 55 individual SKR. 2017, we found 62 SKR. We looked at the sex ratio, the males to the females. It was a little bit flipped last time we did it, but we look for 50-50. It's a good party if there's 50-50. And so, even though it looks a little skewed, statistically it's around 50-50, so we're still good. They were also reproducing. We found several pregnant females. We found several that were nursing. So they're in the process of even, expanding the population, even in November, which is pretty unusual. Last year was a really good year with all the rain and the seed available. And on our rchca property, there was no thatch, so they could expand their habitat out. So it's a good thing. Hopefully the trend line keeps continuing. It has been continuing for the last decade. It keeps going up and up every time. Sooner or later, we will reach a point of, stability, but for now, it's still habitat out there and it's still expanding. There is a report, if any of you are interested in it, it's like a 15-page report, all sorts of vegetation data and all this other thing. Talk to me afterwards. I can email it to you. I just didn't want to bore you with those.
Mr. Chairman, if you have not been out to one of the reserves at night to actually watch some of this activity, it is like Old Town on a Saturday night. It is so busy.
It's busy.
I mean, it's really busy. You can just stand there and watch the activity. And, they should never have called these things rats because they're very, very cute. Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
so-
you can hear the traps going off.
Yeah, you can hear them, and so you should go. It's very enlightening.
It's cool. Thank you. And the other thing is repairing restoration. Some of these areas in Lake Matthews, it's a commercial agricultural operation for decades. And so we had to restore a lot of this stuff. SKR fee money can't be used for repairing restoration, and so we have to find different ways of doing it. And so a lot of it comes down to asking volunteers to help us. There was a scout group out of Lake Elsinore that came up, and they took cuttings and then dipped them in root hormone and planted them, 100 cottonwood, 100 mule fat, and 50 willow. And then we had another volunteer group from RCOG staff that came out on a day and helped us plant them. And then the RCHCA staff ran the irrigation, supplementally watered them, and they're taken off. So hopefully in the spring I'll have some good pictures. This whole area that was denuded and basically used for a stock pond is now hopefully going to have nice cottonwood and willow and all sorts of stuff growing in it. And so it was all done through volunteer efforts and cuttings at no cost. So it was a really neat project. And so it's just some of the annual highlights of what we worked on this year. Of course, the SKR monitoring. We hope to continue that in 2018. We're going to hit Lake Paris, Potrero Reserve, and hopefully Sycamore Canyon this year, and have an idea of the regional kind of effort that's going in towards SKR populations. And so the other thing we did with raptor survey, there's a breeding pair of bald eagles at Lake Matthews this year and as well as last year, and we did a reptile survey. We seeded 15 acres, if you recall. That was 1 acre increments, kind of scattered, and hopefully they'll fill in. We grazed and burned, so we managed about 1,350 acres of SKR habitat. That's the largest in any of the reserves amount of acreage being managed. And so we hope to increase that by a substantial amount next year when we add the 700 acres of prescribed burn, this year. And so we completed the Lake Matthews Vegetation Management Plan. That's the plan by CAL FIRE that's required to do that prescribed burn. It's a lengthy process, multi-years. You have to do biological surveys, cultural surveys, get it through Sacramento. It's a huge partnership. Division Chief Bill Weiser is a notable friend of ours. He helped us work through it, and so he was a great partner as well. The UCR StinkNet proposal, the board funded that. The StinkNet is going to be one of the main threats to SKR going forward. We funded that for $25,000 to the Reserve Management Committee at Lake Matthews, funded it for $28,000 for a combined $53,000. That goes to UCR. They're going to find us a practical way of tackling this weed and mapping it. I just had a great call with San Diego. They've invited us down to their MSHDP group. They're interested in jumping onto our mapping strategy, and so they're going to start using the RCHCA's collector app in their GIS database to basically map that. USGS down there got some funding. They're going to hire a contractor. They're going to go and map StinkNet down in their region as well. So we should have a really good regional perspective of where this thing is at and a good attack strategy for it. So we installed 6 burrowing owl boxes for, for MWD under contract. We have 63 on our land that we maintained. Again, we removed all the tobacco and tamarisk from the RCHCA lands. StinkNet treatment along all the roads. We hit it all last year in our neck of the woods. Other reserves struggled a bit to get on top of it. In the interpretive garden, we have a nice interpretive garden at the reserve office now. The RMC funded it. We installed it. It's growing really nicely. We had to redo all the irrigation. If you're ever up on Cajalco or have groups to come up, now we can kind of show them and walk them through the interpretive garden before we take them out on our hikes. It's kind of a nice thing. And so the outreach, we did 3 hikes, 2 volunteer events, and we did the Audubon Society bird count, and of course our daily kind of patrols and access maintenance, So that's about it.
Okay, I saw Paris think you said.
He answered that as he went along.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Just one comment in regard to volunteers. Have we reached out to the school district, Princess, to see if we could get students that need student hours? Yeah, we should actually make an effort to do that, especially if we get a hold of Pat Kelly and others. I'm certain that they would have plenty of kids that would volunteer to do this for student hours.
Before I leave too, I know Chief Hawkins is no longer, or he's not in the position of Chief of Riverside County CAL FIRE in our area at this point, but he's been a tremendous asset to the RCHA, and he is one of the main reasons we got that $142,000 SRA grant money. He wrote us a beautiful letter of support, and just wanted to give him a notable mention. He's definitely worth his weight for the RCHCA's business. So.
All right, Parrish, back in again?
I'm back in. Brian, can you clarify again for my partner and I here, the StinkNet? I know the rat can't eat off of it, but doesn't it also kill them too if they were to eat it?
No, so it doesn't. We don't know that. We don't think it does. What we do know at this point, and we'll see if further monitoring identifies this trend, is that areas of high dominance of StinkNet, those kangaroo rats were lighter in weight. And so the idea that we're kicking around, and we'll prove this with further monitoring, that was kind of anecdotal type information. But if you eat lettuce all day, yeah, you can survive on lettuce for a period of time, but you're probably not going to be the heaviest or the healthiest person in the world. And so StinkNet kills everything around it, and then nothing else grows in it. So it's like eating one type of food over and over and over. And so we didn't see
the word kill.
Yeah, we don't know if they're dying off because of starvation. It doesn't kill them directly. You can make tea out of this stuff. It's not going to, from what I understand. But it's a problem because it's going to affect them long term.
Right.
And so,
Thank you.
The good thing about Lake Paris, though, they really stepped up last year. They burned 700 acres over there. And so they got rid of a lot of the StinkNet that was, before the seed set and fell on the ground. So we're going to try to go over there and monitor and see. That's right.
We're going to move forward. Great presentation. Mr. Bishop?
I have no report.
No report? No. All right. This time, do we have any general announcements? Okay, so we're going to adjourn to closed session. Can the clerk turn off the recorder, please?